We have NIL shenanigans. You can read it right there. Pressing NIL shenanigans to talk about. So we will in a moment. But first, let me remind you to like, subscribe to Warchant TV, and to share all of our videos and posts and the like so that others, like-minded folk, can find the videos, find the articles that we do here on warchant.com. All right, Ira, we have, as I said, pressing NIL shenanigans to address because it involves one former Florida State University football coach, Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, who you would say is the king of college football, calling out Jimbo Fisher, as well as former Florida State all-world corner Deion Sanders, and really everybody else who's openly paying players, including, I guess, himself at this point. But the hypocrisy, I think the willingness to talk openly about this the way that he has is something that we can all embrace because we know what's going on. Look, what he's pointing to, and Tom, I know you're producing. Go ahead and pop up some of these quotes so we can get straight to it, Ira. This is at the heart of what concerns college football fans, and I think in particular Florida State football fans. I mean, you read that there. You read about them. You know who they are. We were second in recruiting last year. Texas A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team. Now, he went on to say that they didn't do that, and that 25 players at Alabama were able to capitalize over $1 million worth of players to capitalize with name, image, likeness. Now, I don't know if I believe that or not, and certainly he was waving around money when he was recruiting Bryce Young and talking about how much money could be made for players that come to Alabama. But I do know that this is the area that we're all pretty much gravely concerned about because we've skipped right over the name, image, likeness part of this where you say, hey, if you come here and you succeed, you might be able to cash in. No, we're going to pay you in advance of coming here if you come here is where we're at now, which is the definition of pay for play.
Man, you're trying to get into the heart of the matter. I'm just here to make fun of Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher and Deion Sanders and the University of Miami,
do that too.
Who also was lumped in there. I tried to get some popcorn. I texted Kim and I'm like, hey, do we still have any microwave popcorn? And she said all we have is the old fashioned kernel. So I couldn't whip up some popcorn for this video. But yeah, I mean, it's on the one hand, it's just all funny because the idea that Nick Saban, really any SEC coach, is taking this pious attitude towards players getting paid. I mean, come on.
I got a theory though, Ira. I got a theory.
All right.
This is less about the hardcore issue, which I led with and probably shouldn't have because we should have fun with this. This is less about the paying for players, name, image, likeness, and this is more about needling Jimbo Fisher. This is strictly to get under Jimbo Fisher's skin, and it will. It already has. You saw the way Jimbo responded when Lane Kiffin did it, and this is. I've had a little experience with the wrath of Jimbo Fisher in my career. The quickest way to anger him and to watch him go on a diatribe like the one he did on early signing day is to question, in his mind, to question his character or integrity.
Right.
If he thinks that in any way you're questioning his work ethic, integrity, character, he'll lose it. And that's what this does. This basically demeans what Jimbo Fisher and his Texas A&M staff did, right, Ira? It doesn't give them credit for bringing in the world's greatest recruiting class out of nowhere. It doesn't give them the credit he wants, which is to say we worked really hard. Well, yeah, maybe, but you also paid all these guys to come. And so anybody can do that, and that pisses Jimbo off.
Well, but it's all of them because they've all been kings of their little fiefdoms. You know, they've all had their own area. They've all had their own territory or turf where they are the king. And so, and that's Saban and that's Jimbo and it's all these guys. And they're not used to anybody thinking it's about anything other than just them. And I think that's kind of one of the offshoots of this is in the NIL world where players are getting paid in the open. There's no more false premise that they're coming to your school specifically only because they love you and they believe in you as a coach. Now there's more to it. But Jimbo wants it both ways. He wants you to believe that they're coming. He wants to be able to pay these players because that's how you get them. That's how you can assure that they're going to come to your school and reward them and keep them once they're there. In an NIL world, where it's kind of legal, not really legal to use it as a recruiting inducement, but it is legal for them to make money. You could kind of hide behind it and just sit there and smirk and say, hey, I don't know, they just love Texas A&M, and kind of laugh about it. And there's nothing anybody could do. But he wants you to believe it's all about him. And Saban's the same thing. Saban's the exact same thing. He wants people to know, hey, the only reason we didn't have the number one class is because Jimbo was paying all those players. He said, we did it the right way. Right. Come on, man. What are you talking about? First of all, I mean, besides the way recruiting has been done in the SEC and around college football for years, just the fact that, as you said, last summer, Nick Saban was the first head coach to proclaim that Bryce Young had $1 million deal before he even played a snap as the starting quarterback. I mean, that is, it's also hypocritical. And you know, and again, out of all of these people, I'm kind of having more respect for the Miami people who are like putting it all on Front Street. They're like, yeah, man.
He brought that up too. I would say yes to that to some extent, Ira. I do think, though, that, and this is where we do kind of veer into the seriousness of this. Right. We were for name, image, and likeness. We were for players being able to earn money off their name, image, and likeness. We've been for that forever. When this was all being talked about as a possibility, you said it, I said it. There were camps in college football debating with one another. Is this a good thing for college football? We were on the side of yes, it's a good thing. I'd rather see players get some money than another head coach make $12 million a year in college football off the backs of those players, or build a chocolate fountain on your football-only facility, right? I'd like to see the kids make a little money.
And that was the thing. Saban, it won't get talked about in Saban's 7-minute rant, but there's a part in there where he talks about the sport basically being sort of ruined now because players are getting paid. It's like, dude, you make over $10 million a year. How can you say that? So we were all behind players getting paid for sure.
But this has been a bastardization of what we thought that would be. And so this is where he gets away with it. He's right. He's right about a lot of the stuff he brings up. Now, did you also notice, Ira, who he was talking to? Yeah, he was talking to a huge collective of business leaders who support Alabama football.
Right.
This was meant to be a call to action. That's what this was. He, in essence, was saying, I can no longer, just by being Nick Saban, using the methods that I use, the setup we have here at Alabama, wink, wink, I can no longer guarantee you that we're going to get all the guys we want to get. I'm no longer able to guarantee you the number one class every year. I can come close, but there might be some unforeseen circumstances in which we get bested. So, everybody, even though I don't think the system's right and this is not what was intended and we do it the right way, which BS, but okay, even though that may be very well true, he's telling them, now we got to pay for players and you guys better get it together. Let's get it together, everybody, because we're losing out on guys.
Oh, I agree. But I also think he could have had that meeting in private. He likes the fact that he knew cameras were there. He knew media were there. You go back to the thing with Jimbo. So Lane Kiffin's the one that kind of went at Jimbo, and that was Lane. Lane had the great gif last night of Peyton Manning shooting the pistols to celebrate Saban going after Jimbo. But Lane Kiffin was the first one to basically call out Texas A&M for buying that class. Which again, if you weren't paying attention, Texas A&M signed maybe the best recruiting class in the history of college football, coming off of not a great season, and it's Texas A&M. Right. So, so Lane Kiffin said, "Look, man, they've got a fund, and there's been reports about how much money, maybe $3 million for that signing class." And so Jimbo got all offended, but in his press conference where he called Lane Kiffin a clown, he brought up Nick Saban. He brought up Nick Saban in the Bryce Young comment, and then he came back with, "Hey, listen, I know how recruiting's been done in this conference for a long time. If we want to talk about it, we could talk about it," which was kind of a shot at Saban. So Saban was kind of slapping back at Jimbo. This wasn't just talking to those boosters. He also, I think, wanted to kind of take a shot back at Jimbo. That's what's going to be fascinating to me from the soap opera part of this, which I'm all here for. I'm curious to see how Jimbo plays this. He's got no problem firing back at Lane. Deion, by the time this is up on the site, maybe Deion will have responded. Deion tweeted last night at like 1 a.m. that he'll come back with a response. He hasn't. People are going to be careful with how they go back at Nick Saban. So that part of this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, Deion tweeted his response, which was absurd. and misspelled paid. But anyhow.
Well, but that was only the preamble to his response. That was,
Yeah.
I'm going to respond, but he hadn't actually formulated his full response. Again, man, it's one thing to fire back at Lane Kiffin. It's going to be another thing to fire back at Nick Saban. Do you want to go down? Do you want to keep escalating that war? That's going to be something that's going to be fun to play out. But man, yeah, I mean, this is all at the ACC meetings last week. This was the topic of discussion with everybody because this is no longer hidden in plain sight. I mean, this is NIL deals. You got Miami announcing their NIL deals when Kai's come in. Tampering is at an all-time high. It's not new, but it's at an all-time high. And the question is this all part of the process where these coaches are all shook and they're going to just keep saying stuff like this, or what's going to happen next?
Yeah, well, and Saban's other point that he made a while back, and he reiterated it in his comments to that group of business leaders, is that, okay, look, and this goes back a ways too, Ira, like he has always, because people come to him and want to talk to him, he's the number one guy in the sport. He railed against the up-tempo offenses and talked about how they were unfair to defenses. I agree with him. On that. The college rules are not set up the way the NFL rules are, where the offensive line has this advantage on these RPOs where they go downfield in college football and it's never called. And you put a defender in terrible conflict with no real way to remedy that problem. The rule in the NFL is 1 yard, you're done. That's flagged and it's thrown. They implement that rule. So Saban was right. And he called it out. And NCAA didn't do anything about it. So he's like, all right, well, screw it. We're going to do it. And they now do it and kick ass doing it, right? That's what this is. This is that thing all over again. He's like, all right, well, look, man, if guys are just going to openly promise millions of dollars to players to come here, you want to play that game? We're good at it. We already did it, but we'll do it more now. Now we're just going to go ahead and play along if nobody's going to step in. I agree with him again, even though it's hypocritical, and I agree with you. The point is, he's basically saying, okay, that's the new rule. We're in. The problem is this reads on the back of all of these other hits to the sport in the minds of college football fans at the very least, and certainly this is debatable about where this is headed, as another reason to be disappointed with the state of the sport. Like, if we bring it back home for a second on warchant.com to Florida State, it's almost as if you look at it from Florida State's standpoint and we realize this is just becoming about which collective can promise the most amount of money to get the best players, like we're bystanders, like we're on the side of the road. Florida State doesn't feel like, and most schools don't for that matter, but Florida State doesn't feel like it has any chance, not with Rising Spear or any other collective, to be in the same realm anywhere close to the people that we're talking about here. I mean, they can't compete with Alabama and Texas A&M and Georgia and others that are going to do this. And so I think it's funny for you and me. We laugh at this now, and I'm here for it. We're all going to laugh at the comments made about each other's programs. But, man, I'm telling you, I think the common fan reads this today. They think it's funny. They laugh at the hypocrisy, and then they go, we're screwed.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think, first of all, the reality is, Alabama and Georgia were going to get the best players in the country either way. Before NIL and after NIL, that nothing's changed. Florida State still has to get to that level, and I think, man, there are a lot of people around this program who want to invest if they believe. Look, man, if this was the '90s, Florida State would have no shortage of people lining up to put money into the program to compete in that area. You got to show some success, though. Like, they're not going to do it just to hope. Like, once they believe, I think those people are there. I really do. But the other part of it is, the NCAA just came out 1 week ago and said, you can't do this. It can't be for recruiting. And if there's egregious cases, we're going to come after it. So now a week later, you have the biggest name in the sport basically throwing down the gauntlet saying, hey, man, we'll do it too. We have to. The one other part that I thought was interesting in Saban's comments, though, was kind of another message to the boosters was he said, look, if you go out there and buy a player for Alabama, if you're a big Alabama booster and you go spend a lot of money to buy a player for us, and then you strut into the stadium and, hey, I got that guy, and then I don't play him and that kid transfer, well, you're never going to give me money again. So he's trying to align those expectations as well, because I think that's a big part of this. One of the comments of the ACC meetings that somebody made to me was, college boosters can't run the NFL. Like, there's no place in the NFL where
Right.
a big money person, other than a Jerry Jones, you have to go buy the team. You can't just be a rich guy and say, hey, I'm going to buy you a safety, or I'm going to buy you a linebacker. But in college now you can kind of legally. So you've got this class of people, the John Ruizes and some of these people who are seizing the opportunity to kind of be de facto GMs. That part we haven't even seen how that plays out during a season yet, because this is all just bubbled up in the last few months. So how does that play out in the season when, such and such booster is responsible for getting such and such player, and if he doesn't produce, how does the coach manage that with the booster, manage that with the team? I mean, this thing, we're just scratching the surface of how chaotic this could all be. To your point, yeah, for people that love college football, it's definitely concerning.
No, and the other part of it is I wonder, I mean, because he brought up, again, Ira, he's brought up a lot of stuff that other coaches and other people and other administrators have brought up. Like, look, man, you cannot use name, image, likeness to entice a player to come play at your school, but that's exactly what it's become. So he's brought that up, and he says unless the NCAA can enforce existing rules, these are rules that are in place now that suggest you cannot do that. But he also notes they have no means by which to enforce those rules because they're going to suffer litigation. And they don't have the antitrust exemption, so they're screwed. They know they can't enforce. There's nothing that can be done about it. That's what leads to, okay, well, this is what it is now. This is what it's quickly become now, and we now recognize it for what it is. And that's fine. I like everything to be out in the open and on the table. It's just that not everybody is playing by the same rules, if there are rules that are even enforceable. So you do feel this sense of being in limbo. Like what we're watching right now is just kind of a wild, wild west, as it's been described, with no end in sight, because I don't think the federal government is coming to help the NCAA.
No, they're definitely not anytime soon. And so, yeah, this is the ugly process to get to where the end result is, which we still don't even know.
Which is a debatable and fun topic in and of itself. How does this end? How does this play out? Where does Florida State need to be when the musical chairs game ends, right? Like, can we get back in the circle here and guarantee that we're going to be a part of the bigger picture that we all want to be a part of? I hope so. Well, it's fun in the meantime, and it does create the soap opera that we love to make fun of. I'm sure Deion will have interesting comments. Lane will find a way to insert himself here real soon. And Jimbo's going to fire back. But you're right. I'm curious now because we know Jimbo well. And we know his admiration for Saban, but also what he's tasked with Texas A&M booster money to do, which is beat Nick Saban specifically. So here we go.
Yeah, they're going to want him to stand up for himself and stand up for their program. Right. But again, man, it's going to be he might tread a little lightly on this one. We'll see.
He's Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of Warchant.com. I'm Jeff Cameron of The Jeff Cameron Show. Thanks so much for watching here on Warchant TV, Warchant.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this and the ongoing saga. It is college football. I used to call it a male soap opera, but really it's just a soap opera for all these days. Thanks to Tom Lang for producing, as always. But be good, folks. We'll talk to you down the line.